Wow.
Wow.
That's like a, you know. have to
No,
let
I mean,
everybody know.
did you guys go before the meeting?
Yeah. All right, calling the meeting to order. Thursday, December 2nd at 7:00 p.m. We have several of our members on Zoom, and we have some guests with us on Zoom. Oh, here comes John. Hi, John.
How you doing?
How are you?
Doing fine. How you doing?
So, as I said, I promised everybody would get them out, especially some of our guests, because I know everybody's, well, you guys all have businesses to run, and we've all got places to go. So can I get a motion? We do have we have a quorum. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes of October 28th? BJ, got a second? Amanda, all in favor? Aye, okay, any opposed? None, okay. So you will see on your screen, you're not seeing double. We have two, and they're used to this, right? We have twins on here, Jessica and Liz Arundel. Is that how you say your last name, guys? Arundel?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Liz and Jessica opened up on Main Street, 107 Main, I believe. In fact, thanks to Jack, they have a luscious salon over there. And we also have Jackie Pasigna, who is across the street at number 299, which is another, we're just so glad that you guys are all in town. So what I asked them to do tonight was to come and we talk a lot for our visitors. We talk a lot here about what it takes to open up a new business here and how can we, joining us in here, how can we streamline the process? I mean, that's a big focus for us, is the process of opening up a business here, and that we're working on a business development guide to help do that. But if I could just ask you all for 5 or 10 minutes just to talk about your experience, and I'd love to know, just sort of start to finish, you know, what even brought you to New Canaan, and I'd really love you to focus on some things that you think that we could do as a committee here, or recommendations that we could make that might make the process easier for businesses that are considering moving to town. So I'm not sure who wants to go first, but just have at it.
I'm happy to go first. My name's Jackie Fusigna. I opened up number 299, a home and gift shop at 110 Main, right next to Connecticut Muffin. We opened about mid-September, I'd say. And my experience has been great. I had a few kind of just figure it out by myself issues in the beginning, but for the most part, the locals have been just amazing. I feel like everyone in the town has been so kind, so generous, so welcoming, and that's just made it feel so like I'm in the perfect spot. I started my search. I own a shop in Fairfield and have had that for about 7 years in downtown Fairfield. And I started the search about maybe a year and a half ago for a second shop. I started in Ridgefield. After a few months, I eliminated that, and then I moved to Darien, and I had a few challenges with a landlord or two there. And then I moved on to New Canaan. And as I like to say, the older I get, there's a path made for us, and here I am, and it seems like the perfect spot. So I'm really happy to be here.
Great.
Good. And did you use a real estate person to help you find the space, or did you find it on your own?
Yeah, so I basically just spent a day walking around town and looking at spots that seemed like a space I could envision my shop. I made a gazillion calls. Many were out of my reach budget-wise. And then I landed at the 110 Main building, which I was, at the time, I worked through a broker.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really nice and very helpful.
Right.
Um,
And anything along the way that did or did not happen that you think that we as a municipality or as a community could have done better to assist you in moving this process along? Or
So I don't know if any of you other guys on the call here had this experience, but when I opened my shop in Fairfield 7 or 8 years ago, I kind of just did what I wanted. And I've been in 3 locations now in Fairfield. I was surprised by how stringent the rules were in New Canaan with signage and, town hall approvals and such. So I was just thinking about this call ahead of time, and I thought it would be so great. And I don't know if it's you guys who deliver this and how and when, but it'd be so great if you just kind of had a list of procedures for opening a new business in town.
Bingo. It's
Okay.
something that we're actively working on, actually.
Great.
So how did you get the information, since there wasn't one of those documents at the time?
I just kind of figured it out as I went. My landlord was kind enough to send me an email with a contact for local Optimum, local electric, and I think she might have even shared a signage company in Stanford with me. And it wasn't until talking to them where they explained to me that I had to get approval with my plan, a digital plan submitted to town hall. So I didn't realize any of that was in the works, or necessary rather. So I kind of just figured out as I went, and luckily I wasn't in a rush to open, so I had time.
Right.
But
And
if
did
I
you
had,
have to do much of a fit out, Jackie, or not really much in your space? I mean, you painted and freshened things up, but you didn't have to. Liz
No.
and Jessica had to do a major overhaul.
yeah, I've been watching your overhaul for, I watched it for about 2 months going on, and I thought, wow, that's a lot. No, it was a fairly simple cosmetic overhaul for me.
Good. Good. And do you notice, do you find any striking differences between the two towns in terms of the products that you offer, things that are selling, or are you
Not
finding more
really.
similarities?
Not really. I think that the overlying thing that I see on a regular basis is pretty much the fact that in Fairfield, the average spend is less. In New Canaan, the average spend is more. But no, I'm selling the same products. Everyone who comes in just finds everything they're seeing refreshing and great. They love my price points. They're surprised by my price points. So hopefully I'll be around for a while.
And what about parking? Do you hear much about parking?
Never,
Oh,
never.
it's good to hear.
What
Great.
demographic are you seeing coming into your store?
I would say there's 3 things that have driven the traffic recently. One was a Moms of New Canaan post that someone put up and mentioned the shop. So that drove a lot of probably younger traffic. I was featured in the New Canaan Patch early on, and that drove maybe a slightly older demographic. And then most recently in the New Canaanite. I would say I'm seeing, the mom who's got an infant baby. I'm seeing the empty nester who's 60 plus. I feel like, mostly women, obviously, but I would say it's a nice range.
Great.
Yeah.
Anything else anybody's curious about?
Do you have an online component to your enterprise?
I do not. Well, I have a very small one, but no. Instagram is an enormous driver of traffic for me at both locations.
Okay.
Thank you.
For any of you that have not been in your store, I would really recommend it. I go by there a lot. You have some great products, and I already told her there were a couple things that I bought that I went back to get more, and you were sold out. So well done. You do. You seem to have a great eye, and the price point is surprisingly affordable for what you get. So good job.
Yeah.
Anybody else for Jackie before we hear from our salon gals?
Thanks so much.
Jackie, thank you. And if you along the way think of anything else that would be relevant to the work that we're doing here, you know where to find Laura and myself.
The only other thing I would add to that, which is on my list here, is that I would love it to see a list of local events too, because since I haven't lived in town in years, you kind of forget, but just to have dates in terms of, when you have to commit to being involved in it, when the event happens. I've been preparing for shop and stroll tomorrow night, but one of the gals who works in the shop who lives in town told me that it happens all day Saturday too. And I just hadn't clued into that. So
Laura Budd will be in touch with you. She's got most of that information, but and she posts a lot of it on the chamber website, but
right. And that's my,
somebody
that's
new,
my
right?
fault.
Rather than have you have to go find it, it'd be nice to be able to give it to you early on, especially because you're going to benefit from a lot of it.
Right. Yeah. That's great.
Thank you for the suggestions.
Yeah, and one more thing too, sorry. When I first opened, Laura came in immediately and said hello, and we knew each other from years ago, but it's always nice to just get those emails and say welcome to town, and that was definitely there and very much appreciated. So thanks, Laura.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Liz and Jessica, how you guys doing?
Hey.
Are you in the salon, or it looks like one of you is in the salon? Liz, you look like you're in the salon.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm in our Shelton location today, and my other half is in New Canaan, and that's, I think, the beauty of having a twin sister. No one knows the difference, so they think we're working at two different places at the same time.
Exactly. So tell us about your experience. I know I've talked to you a lot about it over the past few months, but
Yeah, well, I'm glad to, and I have to give a big thanks to Laura and Tucker and Jack and Betsy, who's not here today, obviously, but I will be totally transparent in saying that prior to making our decision to move to New Canaan, we were really on the fence. We have a pre-existing location in Shelton, and we have a little over 30 employees here. We have a little over 6,000 square feet. We help thousands and thousands of customers in Shelton, and it started very small and grew little by little over the course of 7 years. But in that time frame, we have attracted a really big population of Lower Fairfield County who have been wonderful to us and deal with the traffic and the parking nightmare and all of the other things that go along with commuting to get your hair done. And I know it sounds like such a silly thing, like how or why would someone drive 90 minutes to 2 hours to have their hair done? But we take a lot of pride in having a very transparent, honest, and upfront relationship with our guests. And over the last 3 years, as we survey our guests, which we do twice a year, we get close to 1,000 responses back. And over a quarter of them said, we will support you, but we would really love if you opened a smaller location closer to this Lower Fairfield County area so that we can continue doing business with you, but we could also bring these friends and family members that just aren't willing to drive to Shelton. And so we knew it was something that we had to do. COVID really kind of delayed that project. But we were open. So we were looking everywhere from Westport to Greenwich. Our footprint goes down into like the Westchester area of our customer base. And we were open. We said, let's spend some time in each of these neighborhoods. Let's look at the population and let's see what the town itself represents from a commercial perspective. We were, to be just totally honest, turned off by the size of Westport. We didn't want our mission to get lost in a town that had a really big population of retailers and commercial businesses. And so we began looking at New Canaan and Darien, and we loved the village. We felt immediately connected to even the business owners. I mean, we went into every single business at the time and introduced ourselves. And everyone was so receptive, very personalized business models, really cared about their guest experience. And we knew that our business model would fit right into your town. And so we were thrilled at the process. We began working with Betsy and Jack. And at the time we thought, well, let's find something small that we could grow with over the course of time. And so we were looking at second floor spaces, and that's when we kind of discovered this amazing opportunity to gut something, build it from scratch, good bones, right on Main Street. And so we started the process. The landlords were great, the real estate agents were great, and we thought this is going to be great. And I will totally agree with Jackie where, when we opened in Shelton, and we've done probably 4 major renovations since then. There's not a tremendous amount of pushback in Shelton. There's direction, and you have to sit in front of the board and you have to present your business plan and your signs and your requests, just like everything else. But there's a good direction involved. They'll say, well, you're denied for this sign for this reason, but we suggest you calling this group or this, handoff, and here's what we'd suggest. And so there was never really like a no, it was a not now, and here's why, so let's revisit this. And there's a good plan. If we felt discouraged, if let's say we wanted to take a wall down, and we needed permission to do that from the building department, it really gave us a good foundation in terms of saying, well, here are our concerns if you want to do that. Moving into New Canaan, everything was great until, and I don't want to say until because it's still great, but when we began working with our legal team, they said, you know, why don't you give the town a call before you sign anything and just make sure that these things that you want to do would be possible. And the answer was not no, which was wonderful, but living nearly 2 hours away from New Canaan made it difficult for us as small business owners because there was a lot of physical papers required. So it was like, you have to come and pick up this application from planning and zoning or the building inspector, whatever the case may be, and then you have to hand deliver it signed. And we'd say, well, is there any way you could email that form? Nope, you have to come and pick it up. And so we spent a lot of time commuting the 2 hours there and the 2 hours back to then later find out, oh, well, you need a survey of the building. And we said, well, we're not doing any septic work, or, you know, we're just kind of like doing plumbing or this or that. And so some of it, and I understand, you know, policies are in place for many reasons, but trying to get from lease to opening our doors took a really, really, really long time, as Jackie probably saw, right? Much of that had to do with the build out, but the paperwork and the process of navigating from day one, like, hey, we can't wait to do this, we're excited, to actually being allowed to start construction took much longer than we expected it to. And that included even things like having a preliminary health inspection of the building before we were even doing much, right? And so a lot of it was like, okay, yeah, sure, we can do that. We'll see you in 2 weeks for that. We'd be like, 2 weeks, oh gosh, you know? And so again, we know there's a reason for all of it. And I'm sure it's to uphold this level of excellence that the village is so well known for, which was why we're more than happy to oblige. But speaking as a small business owner, I mean, we're nearly 10 years into this process, and we have a lot of fortunate resources that allow us to have a legal team. And if we were first-time business owners, if we were in a startup or doing this for the very first time, I don't know if we would have been able to go through this process with New Canaan, just based on not having that clear direction and not knowing from previous experience exactly how to have navigated the process.
Yeah. So it sounds like a common theme that more of a directory or a resource guide or something, again, is something that we're working on and we're focusing on, would have been really helpful to you all.
Liz, I wanted to ask you a question. You were saying you felt like your business model would work well in New Canaan. Can you talk a little bit more about that? You sort of felt like what felt like it would match sort of this sort of more tailored, curated experience with a guest, or that caught my ear.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jess and I, as I mean, anyone can see, we're family, right? And we both left behind rather successful corporate careers to pursue a dream in our mid-30s. At the time, we knew what we wanted to do was to make a real difference in the industry and have this curated, honest, transparent relationship with women who really yearned for a different approach to their beauty needs. But we wanted to keep it very homegrown. Despite having grown to having a large team and a large space, it still is very family oriented, where we really do a lot of work in the community where there are families involved. And so we knew that we wanted to work within a community where parents that need help with their children, right? Or dads that need help learning how to do their daughter's hair. These are difficult things to do in larger city-based environments where the population is like fast, quick, now, cheap, let's go. Like it's difficult to do that when you're working within a community where there's not a lot of value on the relationship of families or friendships or long-term, loyal, transparent conversations. And so New Canaan really caught our eye, because as we were meeting with even the business owners and the employees of the small businesses, I saw a lot of this connected theme of, we love what we do, we love where we do it, this is a great place to raise a family. And all of that kind of tied together to really resonate with us and our story and what we're trying to do with our own customers.
I would like to ask all three of you how you're finding your employees and your staff and how you're getting them to New Canaan. You know, just that relationship that you're talking about other employees in New Canaan and that loyalty aspect. Are you
Sure.
Are you finding the right kind of staff?
So our business model is unique for our industry. As I said before, Jess and I came from a corporate background, and we recognized early on that our industry specifically doesn't always provide sustainable long-term career resources. And so when we first opened our business, we approached it with, this is what a 401k looks like. These are benefits. We want to extend this to everyone who works for us. And we do a training program from people who just recently graduated from cosmetology school that otherwise wouldn't always have these opportunities and resources. And so we have a lot of employees here in Shelton, many of whom live down in that area, that have been eager for something to open closer to home for them. And so we were very fortunate to have such an amazing group of employees, that many of whom are now moving over to New Canaan, which opens up Shelton for growth with new employment. So we have not yet gotten to a point where we've had to do like a mass hiring event, which we may have to do at some point. But we really wanted to open New Canaan with the familiar faces of Luscious that have been with us from the early days, that are skilled in making new relationships.
I'm also reminded, Laura, I'm looking at the screen here, we've got Heather, Liz, Jessica, Jackie, and you know, it reminds me that Laura and I talked a lot over the years about how this would be such a great PR opportunity to talk about women-owned businesses in New Canaan, because they are really prolific here, and that's a testament to all of you.
I did a quick count for an article I published this week, and just top line, and thinking about some of the second stories and, medical, I mean, over 60 female-owned operated businesses here in town. It's awesome.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And I want to ask about parking to Liz and Jessica. Are you finding that your clients are finding places to park? Is that an issue? Has that come up?
It's only been a challenge on Friday, like late afternoon, but I will say our customers that are coming from Shelton are already dealing with, limited parking and having to circle the block a couple times. So it's nothing new. No one complains. They're just really more so looking for, if this lot is full, what do you suggest? Type situation.
And you all are aware of the business parking permits that we offer for people who own businesses in New Canaan, or employees of businesses in New Canaan? Good, okay. That's something we definitely want to get across. Anybody else got anything for our guests? I really appreciate you all being here. And again, just welcome to New Canaan. And I think that you two are going to be, both these businesses are really going to just start something over there. We're going to have a lot more activity, which is just great. So
Yeah, let's just get the rest of the street full.
that's what we'd love to do. Working on it. You're welcome to stick around, although I know you've probably got other things to do. So if you have to sign off, thank you again. And if you want to stay on, we'll gladly keep you here. But I'll be seeing you all in and around the streets for sure.
Sounds good.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Really helpful. I mean, I guess it really does. It just
It feeds right into.
Rock and I were both like, there you go.
Right, right.
It's awesome.
It's also a little disheartening, frankly, to hear how that physically they had to
do everything.
to
Right.
schlep to New Canaan.
Yeah.
Everything should be digital.
Yeah.
It just
It's long
Yeah.
overdue.
Yeah, I'm surprised. A lot of the forms are online, so we have to find out.
which ones?
Right.
particularly.
Because there is definitely a digital database that New Canaan has. So we have to find out where the disconnect.
Yeah, that disconnect is.
Yeah.
And the other thing I thought was so fantastic was the events, the listing of the annual events.
Yeah.
And that's easy to put together and create,
Right, right.
So. I'm
Isn't it
putting
on the
that
town
list.
website now, or isn't it on some?
Well, the town, yeah, the chamber lists, you know,
Yeah.
90% of the ones that they're aware of. They have a community calendar, but everybody lists their events. So that's where it is, but you know, again, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know necessarily that they have to go to our event. I think, Laura, isn't the calendar page one of the most, one of the busiest
Yeah,
pages on the
it is.
site?
Yeah. definitely.
Yes.
On the chamber site,
The
yeah,
counter page?
the calendar page,
The
Calendar
calendar.
page.
yeah.
But I'm thinking that if we have the booklet, one of the things in the back of the booklet would be not only, hey, reference, you know, go to the chamber site, but also kind of a list of the bigger
This is the booklet to tell them how to
The-
create a business.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but that's gonna be on the website too, the New Canaan
Yeah, well,
website,
that's-
under if you're starting a business in New Canaan,
Yeah,
there's all the
right,
things you
right.
should do.
And and I don't want to jump ahead.
No, go ahead, let's stay on it. Laura.
So we're really waiting right now for that last component, right? From,
Yes.
from town.
Right,
So, we're gonna push to get that last
What component is
part
that?
done,
Sorry.
so we can design.
the business guide,
Oh, the
they've,
business guide.
they've done a lot of the work, but now they need a lot of the text, the content from the building, from the planning and zoning and the building department.
One of the things, and I think we got a little bit from our guests, is there are so many separate applications. And you don't know exactly what you need, and yes, you can't, my experience is you can download them, they're available. You just need to know where to find them or what you need to get. But
Yeah,
I'm almost wondering if there is an opportunity to compile some of them.
Okay.
So you don't have to go to 8 different locations.
that was a little bit of what we were speaking about too, what was her name, Linda?
Lynn.
Lynn. And she was really excited that that could be a possibility of having live links or, you know, something that they could actually, you know, have them all in one
But
spot.
couldn't that business guide have all of the forms, part of it?
They
Right.
would have, it could,
Yeah.
if the
should
business
be
guide is
online. It should be
digital,
online.
there could be
Right.
links to all of that. This is what you'll need, click.
Here's your
You wanna
sign.
fill it out online, really, is what you wanna fill it out online and
That's the
sign it.
next step. That's a process that they're hoping to work on relatively soon to have.
Well, I mean, just to
forms
fill
online.
out the what's it called?
PDF.
PDF document, that's
Yeah.
all I, you know,
Yeah,
that's all
PDF
I
and
need.
then email, so it's
So
not live.
we've teed that all up, we just gotta get it across the finish line, so
Yeah.
we will work
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
Jack, I'm just curious, did they have to go for a change of use for Luscious? P and Z?
You're muted,
You're
Jack.
muted, Jack.
See if you-
Brock, I actually, I don't remember.
Okay, but I wanna
Should have
give,
gone like that.
Oh, that's a question.
I just wanna give P and Z credit as well, because that, in my mind, it falls under a service establishment. And if if P and Z had been flexible in hearing out some other Main Street uses that were needed in the last couple of years, you know, I think we paved the way to get businesses like Luscious in. So we need to finish the document that gets these businesses into town easier, easier way to navigate things, but you know, I also.
Almost like a flow chart, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
So-
Brock, what did you find about, I mean, this is a second floor establishment, right?
No, they're first floor.
Oh,
First.
she
She is
okay.
first floor. They started looking at second floor.
Yeah.
They're actually in Heather's old space in the way it all, so it was, I mean, it was a retail store and then they. I think I got involved in a little bit of it with them because they were having a hard time and I mean, they were plumbing and doing all of that kind of thing. It was a big job inside.
Yeah.
So it did take some time.
But I do love the idea of the flow chart,
Right.
you know, because I
Do you
think
think
what
we're
we
doing
had
this
done
because-
initially is we had kind of gotten a lot of the information, put it all into one thing. But then we're really looking for Lynn to say, oh, here are the forms, here's, because her section's so big. So
Right.
there's like,
And there's a way to do where you're like, assign this next. You put
Right.
that nice, like, next.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Because sometimes
Continue.
if you see a flow chart, and I've had this issue, people are like,
Yeah, it's too much.
it's overwhelming, but if you're taking, it's like the wizard, the sign up wizard.
Yeah.
They're like,
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
take you through what you need to do.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I feel so good, someone's taking. It's like,
Right.
hey, there's step one, let's do this. Oh,
Right.
good, good job, next
Yeah.
one. You know, and it's a lot
Yeah,
more.
as long as
it's friendly.
step one is the
And
most common denominator.
Right.
Right,
Is
and then you
it-
start to get.
Right,
more
and I
specific.
think sometimes that's the challenge.
Is it the technology committee that would be doing this kind of stuff? Don't they decide on what the technology is?
No, I mean, the department would work with our internal technology,
Oh, that's
information
different.
technology
The
company.
Oh, we have an internal.
It is,
technology-
it's department, it's existing,
Oh.
you just have to figure out who can do it.
Yeah, but they're pretty much there in
Okay.
offering most of this. As I said, it just sounds to me like we're talking about compiling it or condensing it more into a one stop rather than having to go to multiple places.
And, you
Easy
know,
to find, right?
just to give these town agencies credit, I mean, in the last year, there had to be these
I know.
steep learning curves and changes, and so it's taking a while to get it all in place.
Yeah.
Well, and it was Lynn that actually brought us the first, the
Right,
one
the
from,
template.
the template from New Rochelle, so she saw that early on.
I think next steps for us is, we're gonna do one more pass at getting all the information that we know we have,
Mhm.
so that Lynn can save a little time. I think it was overwhelming for her, so save that time.
Right,
So I think that's where we should be right now.
Who's Lynn, by the way?
town planner.
Oh, thanks a lot. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And she's shorthanded right now, one of her staff moved on, so she's, she's also, and remember this year, COVID, the library, she's had a lot
No,
going on.
I don't, yeah.
She's doing a great job. So we're jumping around a little bit. Does anybody else have anything to add? I know we haven't been able to do a lot of some of the work stream tasks that needed to be completed, but does anybody have anything to add to anything that they're working on? And in fact, Nancy, why don't we just jump into the conversations that you and Amanda and Greg and I have had over the last couple of days and talk about some of the ideas that we tossed around and.
Well, I think the important thing is, so we had our first sort of year of a in-person October for Design. And I think for those who participated, everybody thinks it was a big success. We had, I'm gonna put together some numbers that Tucker asked me to do about numbers of outside visitors, what the budget was, those kind of things. But anecdotally, and from what I saw, it was, we had a lot of people from out of town. We had good participation, and it was a wonderful way to bring together mostly the nonprofit cultural institutions in town, but also some of the businesses. The gallery stroll was a really nice event that should probably continue, and I think it will. I think the gallery owners were happy with that. So we've been talking about sort of how to move forward with that. It wasn't as much, I think from my point of view, the big issue is this is not an historical society event. We are a participating cultural institution. But the idea of it, and certainly the idea of it when TDAC funded the graphic design work, was that this was a town-wide event. And it was, the Glass House is a really great partner. The Great Farms participated this year. But this needs to be, in order to make it a mini Palm Springs modernism or something that brings people from all over the country, it really needs to be something that everybody participates in. And so that's kind of our struggle. We have a commitment from US Modernists, which is based in North Carolina. They are coming in 2023. They're really excited to come, and they had some very, very good suggestions for me on ways to improve things. But we want buy-in from everybody, and not to have it. The Historical Society sort of took a weird role this year, because other than the graphic design work that TDAC funded, the Historical Society funded the whole thing for all of the institutions. So all of the marketing, all of the graphic design work was paid for out of the Historical Society budget. That is not a sustainable model. And if this is going to be something that we want to move forward with, indefinitely, it has to really be a town-wide initiative. And that's what we had when Laura Pla and I presented it to TDAC now in January of 2020, that was what we had envisioned.
And you also talked about probably condensing it to not be a month-long program, to probably, you know, do 2 weekends and a week in between, a 10-day, to allow for people to come and take advantage, if people were traveling here, to take advantage of all of it and not have it spread so far out.
Yeah, I think what we learned is that having it be a month long meant that we were relying on people from New Canaan to support all of the events. And that probably the better thing to do is to follow the Palm Springs modernism model and have it be 2 weekends and a week in between. So if people are coming from out of town, they can come. They don't have to come for the 10 days, but they could come for one weekend and part of the week, or part of the week and the final weekend, and participate in much more.
Like a jazz fest thing where you have the 2 weekends.
Yeah.
You either come one or the
Yeah.
other and then half the week.
Right.
A lot of people.
And there's still elements of it that could carry on for longer than just the 10
For
days
the
or
local
so.
folks.
Yeah.
Nancy, have you identified specifics that would take it out of the historical society's umbrella into the larger town umbrella, specific resources or steps or anything that can be real takeaways?
Well, I mean, Greg and I have talked about this a lot. I mean, there's a real opportunity for the Glass House, a real opportunity for Grace Farms. They participated with us this year, but Greg lost money because, you know, he gave us a discounted rate on his tour, which was one of the most successful events we had. So I think that we need to all come together as cultural institutions and sort of look at the dates and look at what we want to do and all sell our own tickets, and kind of make this a very celebratory 10 days for the town. And, you know, the Historical Society aside, I mean, I'm not wearing my hat right now of being the executive director there. You know, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of cultural institutions, and collectively we would make New Canaan a destination where people would come. And we did a lot of work with, for example, Fred Noyes over the course of the month, and he was thrilled. He gave a talk, he had people coming to his house. He actually had people coming to his house as part of the tour that he circled back and then gave them a cocktail party because he was excited to meet them. You know, so I think that there's a lot of ways that we could make this work to have it a very exciting 10 days and market collectively.
And I think what most of you're aware of is the fact that this was all done with volunteers pretty much this year. I mean, the funding came, lion's share of the funding was certainly from the Historical Society. But so when I met with Nancy and Greg today, we were just talking about how we could move it forward, and we talked about, you know, possibly putting in a request for some ARPA funds to have somebody, because somebody's going to have to run with this. And so I'd love to think that we could pull this presentation together, Nancy, that we talked about, you know, getting some of the data and some of the information about the event, and see if we couldn't find some funding to have someone, and you offered to sort of house them, if you will. I mean, they could help, they could work over with you, and you could advise, but you can't take this on as a one-man project, one-woman project.
Laura Pla, who many of you know and who did the initial presentation with me to TDAC, you know, she has been an educator at the Glass House. She's been an educator at Grace Farms. She was on our board. She's now moved to Martha's Vineyard. And I was going through her numbers, and she probably put in somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 volunteer hours to put this together. She's now left. And so, you know, how are we going to make this work? It would be a huge investment of Historical Society time where we only have 2 full-time employees, and we can't sustain that. So I think the question is, you know, is this something that the town cares about enough that it might be worth investing in somebody? I've talked to Laura about whether she would be willing to consult, and she will. But I think we need to figure out, like, who's going to run with this. And we could, my board at the Historical Society is very committed to this event. So there's no question that the Historical Society will put in resources in terms of staff, my time, other staff time, and, office time. But we need to figure out kind of how this is going to work going forward.
It almost sounds like they're like anchor sponsors, kind of anchor sponsors that make the most sense. That should be like the high profile kind of sort of sponsors of the event. And then there's a lot of little ones.
So
And
the
then
library
someone's
didn't have a chance this year to be involved with it just because they were doing everything that they were doing, but they would be a natural fit.
Right.
To be, as you said, sort of more. And
Like key partners and then smaller partners. And it's almost like maybe like in a marketing event, like you create an event, you create the theme, you
But
create.
somebody has to coordinate
Yeah,
all those.
someone has to.
All those efforts.
You
right?
have to.
Right.
And then either the idea would be, ticket sales that would kind of cover a lot of the, the
Yeah,
costs.
and I love what Nancy said was each group would be, there'd be this overall person who would follow everything. But each company, each cultural event would handle their own stuff.
Yeah.
So there's no issues there.
As an
And
anchor thing.
Yeah,
People.
yeah.
I agree.
there would be no overlap. So that person's in charge of the calendar, so there's no overlap and it's.
But if
A
you
lot of
really
fun.
concretely, this is the theme, this is what, and then they get you get
Well,
approval
and-
of those.
And
Yeah.
we have to give
Satellite.
the Historical Society
Yes.
credit for producing that beautiful calendar and website.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of lessons learned and a lot of groundwork established this last year that's even strengthened, even though Laura is not going to be able to run with it for 2023. Is that the?
No, 2022. We want to do this every year.
So soon,
We're
yeah.
gonna do it every year.
Yeah, but there are a lot of things that came out of this year that are really positive that will make next time easier.
So do you all think that that's a path forward in terms of looking for some funds possibly from ARPA?
Absolutely.
To have,
Yeah.
to find somebody to
Definitely.
take this.
I
to
mean,
the next
I always
level?
thought recreation was supposed to be something like that, but it's not anything to do with that kind of stuff in this town, right? I mean.
Recreation?
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought recreation would come up with events and things for the town and kind of coordinate that kind of stuff. I mean, basically, I know they do the pickleball
Yeah,
and.
yeah, they have, I mean, they have tons of
They have
events
tons of
that
stuff,
they do.
but
for-
I
for
just
the
thought that was
families and-
part of,
Yeah,
recreation is events and.
yeah, I don't
experiences.
know if this is something that they could take on. Oh, Jack, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a question there for Nancy. Nancy, I was away, so I was unable to be at the event. I was very impressed with what I saw. But how does Palm Springs do it? What do they do to
Themes,
organize?
Well, the big difference is they're bigger. What they do is that a percentage of their revenue goes to the homeowners for improvements and renovations and preservation. So, we are not there yet. We're not generating those kind of funds that we could then give them to homeowners. But there's a bigger buy-in from the community. And then they're just bigger. I mean, we presented 3 programs for them, and we were 3 of like 70 programs that were done. So, Mark Davies and I have been talking constantly, and he wants us to come out to Palm Springs and present something on New Canaan and modernism there. I mean, I think that everybody is really excited about New Canaan, and US Modernist is excited about New Canaan, but we're very short staffed. We don't have a lot of people willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work.
And what you pointed out today.
Right.
or
Does
whatever-
Palm Springs have,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
does Palm Springs have just, does it have a specific person that does this, that's hired to do it?
No, they have a whole team of people. They have a huge staff. I mean, they're generating millions in revenue.
They have sponsors.
Yeah, they have
Yes.
lots.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have sponsors on their
Marvin
website.
Windows,
And the ticket prices are way higher than anything we're charging.
But
Okay.
as you told me, I mean, this was 15 years ago when this whole thing began, so.
And they have they're a huge town and then huge money and,
Palm Springs.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
totally different kind of thing. Plus, they have 1,000 hotels,
Yeah, but I think what we don't want to lose sight of is the amount that we got done in the 1 year.
Year and a half, because it did happen in 2020 virtually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just that idea that, oh, look, we're already thinking of all the great things that we could do, and the expansion of bringing in other people, other, cultural institutions will completely take the pressure off of you, Nancy, and it'll also widen it. What could be better than that?
But I think the big difference with Palm Springs Modernism is they have an entire staff dedicated only to these 10 days in January, February. So
a year-round staff.
Mhm.
that
a
work
year-round staff, yes. They're all full-time employees working only for this particular window. And but I think that their model is slightly different because I think we're really wanting it to be much more community-wide. I mean, when Laura and I presented this to TDAC, we wanted it to be bigger than just modern architecture, which is huge in New Canaan, but also is not everything in New Canaan. And so I think that what we're hoping to do is some kind of variation on a theme, learning from them for sure, and partnering with them to the extent we can, but also much more adapted to the town that is New Canaan, which would be involving the retailers and the other nonprofits and ones that don't so neatly fit into a mid-century modern mission. Such as the Carriage Barn and such as Silver Mine and not only the Glass House and the Historical Society.
But I think one thing that's been discovered that's important is the demand is there. I think that's a great thing to know, and that you can develop that demand and grow this.
So are there certain people that go around and give these lectures like Palm Springs wants?
Oh, she's got content. I mean, she could run the program. I mean, come up with the programming.
Nancy, the other accomplishment from this last year is the relationship with Palm Springs, right? I mean, that really became a much deeper relationship. And the fact that they brought their 25 people and that they were hugely enthusiastic about their visit to New Canaan. And so you've already planted the seed to really nurture that, and this presentation that can be given hopefully is another hook to get a broader audience back to New Canaan for 22.
Yeah, and I will say that George Smart, if anyone hasn't seen the US Modernist website, he is the largest database of information around mid-century modern architecture around the country. And he sent 3 people from his team for the week. And they were very, on it, kind of giving me feedback constantly, even during the events, how things could be better. And then they wrote literally the day it ended that they had reviewed as a team and decided that it was a quality standard that they will send their team in 2023. They'll send a group. They send groups all over the country. So I think that we have some great potential partners all over the country. And, now that we were talking about this earlier today, now that the Hotel Marcel is going to be finished up in New Haven, maybe that is our hotel, that it's a mid-century, it's a Breuer hotel. It's a Breuer building built by Bruce Becker, who grew up in New Canaan in a mid-century modern. He happens to be based in Westport, but this is where his roots are. He's a lovely man, at least the little bit that I know of him. And, we have an opportunity to have, down, what is it, from New Canaan to New Haven in a bus? It's probably 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's a modernist hotel in New Haven?
Yeah.
Converted to a hotel. It was a corporate office going way back, the Armstrong Tire Company.
Oh.
It's the Pirelli building. It's very distinctive, right as you're going up 95, coming into Yale. It's right there on I-95 by IKEA.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Now that you said IKEA, I got it.
Yeah, now you can see it right there.
That's the landmark of all things.
Well, this all brings me sort of back to our goals and focus for 2022. And one of the things that I've been wrestling with, and I know some of you have as well, how to sort of really rein in exactly what TDAC's going to focus on over the next year, what has risen to the top. And I think October for Design is right up there, top of the list. I mean, I'd like us to think about 2 or 3 initiatives that we're going to spend our time focusing on and our energy. And I would say the business development guide is there. I think October for Design. And then one other thing that Nancy and I spoke about was the need, we still have this need for marketing material digitally, also some sort of a handout. I don't know if any of you have seen, it's many years old, however, it's still fairly current because they developed the Board of Realtors years ago, made a magazine called Welcome to New Canaan.
Yep.
And they purposely made it very generic so that it wouldn't time out, if you will. But it's a magazine with ads in there, different real estate companies and builders and that kind of thing. However, we were talking about how it would be really helpful to have something like that these institutions aren't going anywhere. The Glass House isn't going anywhere. Grace Farms isn't going anywhere. The Historical Society, Museum Historical Society isn't, you hope, right? So Nancy offered to get, Gina Federico, who's the designer, who's worked on a lot of the work, certainly for October for Design and other things that Nancy's worked on. Nancy, do you want to just quickly talk to how you spoke to Gina and what we've asked her to give us some numbers on?
Yeah, so I had talked to her based on my conversation with Tucker and Amanda yesterday. I asked her to put together a proposal that would be a 28-page brochure. It would feature a lot of the nonprofits, including the library. It would also have it would have a map for the institutions that aren't moving. Like it wouldn't feature the restaurants or the stores because they change over. And it would have some information about the historical, not the Historical Society, the history of New Canaan, the town, whatever. The one that the realtors did had a page by the then first selectman. Tucker was in it as head of the chamber. And so it looks dated. So we're going to we would try and figure out a way to make it kind of timeless. So
Are you trying to say I'm 10 years younger than Nancy? Is that what you were trying to say?
No, I'm just saying that people change in their roles, whatever. So this would be kind of a little more generic in the sense that it wouldn't be tied to any person.
Yeah.
She gave me a proposal today of $7,500 to design it. That would not include the printing, obviously, but Tucker and I were talking about that's a pretty reasonable estimate for 28 pages where she's having to deal with, she's going to deal with the Glass House separately, Grace Farm separately, Carriage Barn separately, Historical Society. I mean, she knows me pretty well, so that will be easy. But and it would be something that could be part of the welcome wagon, part of the town greeter, part of every realtor's office, and it wouldn't have any advertisements. So it would just be the core of what the town is offering for its cultural life.
Why wouldn't you have advertising?
Why no advertising?
I think the idea was to keep it, well, the advertising, like if you look at the one that was produced before, it's houses that are listed at that moment. And so it instantly becomes dated because those houses have sold or changed hands probably 5 or 6 times. This would be something that would just be sort of pure. I mean, I guess we could include advertisement. I just think it junks it up because then people are getting it and it's stuff that is irrelevant at the time, at the moment that they open the brochure.
And why is it
Nancy?
hard copy instead of digital?
Well, no, we would do both, but we would
Do both.
Well, why would you do hard copy?
That's what I'm curious about.
We get, I mean,
And take
The
away
demand is there.
Go to.
Because,
real estate.
these.
Well, I'd rather give them a thing, go to this website
I
or
agree.
something.
Yeah, I
Have
think
these
these days with
papers.
printing, you can, digital printing, you can print so small, and then do a reprint if need be. Something to consider.
No, I mean, I just wonder why hard copy is
I
is
feel like
useful. I mean,
it's
so many
thrown
that
away a
end up
lot.
going to waste
Yeah.
and
It's
people
funny,
just
the
throw.
Welcome to
them.
New Canaan magazine, and I wish I gave us our last copy, although Laura, you've got a couple boxes still in the chamber
And
office, but
didn't we invest in live, whatever that is, live,
Live
Live
New
New
Canaan.
Canaan, doesn't that have all that in it?
doesn't have all of it in it. It has a lot of, I mean, it's got a lot of information in it, but this was more from sort of the tourism aspect, as well as the nonprofits and the community piece. I mean, we can certainly talk about this, but further, I just, back to the Welcome to New Canaan magazine, I still see that in a lot of places. On coffee tables, and I see it in stores and their counters, I see it in offices.
That means it's not in people's homes.
Yeah, I just, only I wonder, so I did the whole e-commerce thing, and I got this whole load of stuff and it ended up in the trash, like, I don't know, like, I'm not, I just wonder.
Mhm.
It might look good on a coffee table, but is it being really used, or like, I don't know.
Well, we definitely have to have a digital
Yeah.
component.
I mean, I guess what I would
And then
hope
you
that
could
the
change
digital
it,
would
and
be
you-
more.
And then you could have actually current things, and you don't have to worry
Yeah.
about things changing, because you could then just
You
change
could
it.
still have advertising.
And, yeah. But-
Yeah, I would like to keep the advertising, that's just my own personal preference, just because when we were looking at it the other day, we were going through 5 or 6 pages before we could get to the first page of context. Because,
And
Well, I don't wanna
that's
do
just
that.
like how do we
Absolutely, that-
structure it,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
that's-
you could certainly have
Because we have
sponsors.
some, we have some mainstays.
And I think as a new person in town, I might want to see some advertising from local people because I might not know anybody in this town, you know?
And I'm not against like print in general, but like having like, if you wanted to talk about one thing, and I think that sometimes like, physical stuff breaks through the clutter because everyone's online and you want it to be offline and you want it to be printed. That's one thing that people can look and learn about, but to have something that like, as like a resource, it gets like, things get lost, or I don't know, I don't think it's as, I don't know how useful it is as.
And how lasting it
Deal with things.
What's the
with
lasting value?
Yeah.
Well, we do have,
And
I mean, people have
sustainability
already,
too.
would have already shown up to get a handout, so like walk-in.
I have to say, I really disagree. I mean, we do handouts all the time at the Historical Society and people take them. And we're handing them out to young people, old people. I mean, when we have an exhibit, we have a postcard, it's like a 6x8 postcard that then has all the lectures and stuff on the back. People take those. I think if we had an attractive takeaway that people could pick up at Walter Stewart's, could pick up at a realtor, you know, that had this information, I think people would take it. Maybe it ends up in the trash down the road, but they look at it first.
I think it'd be interesting to
You
find
know,
out.
Well, you know, Nancy, and I have to say, I agree with having it more digital, not print. I agree with that. I mean, I can imagine at the train station, you'd have a way to, a billboard or a sign to say, you know, put your phone against this and get the information about what you want to do in town. I just think it has much more legs being digital. It's where the world is now.
But why are we talking about an either or? We're talking about both.
That's what I think we
Well,
can
because
have
it
both.
will match, because the digital, you can constantly, you can update it, and you can do new information.
But we're talking about things that aren't updated so
Yeah.
frequently.
That's what I'm saying, it's limited, it's.
But now you've got to get somebody who's
going
gonna manage it, right? Somebody who's gonna make sure the content gets changed.
But if it's useful and people are, like, I guess what I'm saying is you can create stuff that people pick up, throw out, or you can create something and put resources against it that people actually use on a day-to-day basis, on a more like constant basis. That's
Okay,
what
but the other problem is that, you know, we've been talking about Oticast for 6 months, and Greg and Karen and I spent a lot of time posting our institutions on Oticast, and nobody else participated. And so, you know, we have this whole digital content that nobody's looking at.
Right.
Right, and I guess my thing is we should invest in like managing that and making it more useful and more usable than, like, you're right, I think there's a lot of digital stuff out there that no one's looking at, but I think that's just because we're not doing it.
Well, the nice thing, I mean, listen, both are definitely necessary, I think. However, if you do the print, you don't have to print
So,
20,000.
So that's the
Right.
beautiful
What-
part.
You can always reprint.
Yeah,
Right.
Right, I mean, so you print part of it, so that you have a stack, and everybody that we think needs a stack, but of whatever it is, but print
So
more.
this is for people that have come to New Canaan, they're shopping and see this.
Any and all of the above. People who-
No, but I'm wondering
Yeah,
what's the benefit,
So
you know,
here's
if I
the-
live in New Canaan, what's the
Okay,
benefit?
here's the scenario. Someone comes to the Glass House. They're at the visitor center. They're leaving.
Mhm.
They have the afternoon in New Canaan and they find out, oh, Waveney Park. I didn't even know there was a Waveney Park. And they pick it up and they're not on their phone looking for what other cultural events are in New Canaan.
Yeah,
They pick it up and it's
yeah.
kind of casually, randomly found. I think it has dual
And what
purposes.
if it would be a postcard with a QR code that then they can go on and then all of this stuff comes out? Like, I guess I'm not opposed to a handout. I guess it's how people use handouts and how useful it can be. So I'm really like, I'm
Yeah.
absolutely for a
Yeah.
postcard with a QR code that says, find out all like the great, wonderful things about New Canaan with a map and all these, and then people use their phone, because this postcard gets thrown out or it gets put in their purse, and like, happens all the time. And it's just, to me, it can be wasteful, but having it be a venue or a means to then open up a world of other information, I think it's actually very effective to do that. And I think it breaks through the clutter. So I think you can use print. I guess I would be more strategic about how we're using the print and in what way, and really understanding how people use brochures or or postcards. That's all.
You say,
Well, I say the QR code is fine. I think we're excluding a certain portion of our visitors that are probably over a certain age, who aren't necessarily.
Sure.
Yeah.
And maybe
We
you do it for
had,
them, maybe you do a small
Yes.
portion for those folks.
Yeah.
We had a
Absolutely.
request by a high school class that was a civics class. And they actually used 20 copies of it to like learn about New Canaan, and all the kids were like, oh my gosh, we didn't know all this stuff. And they had to go and visit places, and understand the town and all of that kind of stuff. So the info is actually very consumable. People love it.
Laura, you and I used to get asked a lot for this kind of thing, and we would always tell them, we don't have it because the moment you put a restaurant on there or whatever, when we used to do the maps, the restaurant changes their phone number, moves to another location, whatever, it's kind of null and void. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, that's why I put my little hand up. I think you can do a hybrid. You can do a hybrid where maybe you have a lush, magazine part with the QR code that can then take you to areas that are going to change, the shops and the restaurants and all that. But I think to solve the advertising problem and the cost of printing problem, what you do is you offer like one or two key positions in the magazine, the back cover or the inside cover, to different real estate offices, banks, et cetera. They get one signature ad. They pay for the printing, and obviously we can fold in some of the design costs there. So then it's a relationship give, right? So if you go to a bank, or real estate agents can use them, and there's just one ad in there, one or two, and so it's like lots of little mini custom publishing, and then with QR codes to lead people to where they need to go. For information that's not evergreen, that's going to be changing, et cetera. So that's my thought.
Yeah, and
Heather?
oh, sorry.
Heather?
You're muted.
You're muted, Heather.
I don't know if I didn't hear that this was said, but you know how in town that the service isn't so great? So if you're only using the QR code or whatever, can you ever lose that connection while you're traveling around to these places that you're exploring? And then you're like, oh no, I have no service. So how do I know where I'm going next?
Yeah, that's a good point. It happens. Right. Well, in either way, it would have to be designed. Whatever we do has to be designed,
Yeah.
right?
And I think Gina has such an incredible way of kind of getting those cultural institutions, the nonprofits and all that together. So I think,
Only thing I would say, I think there is a difference in digital design to page design.
and she is
She's
Okay, I
don't know.
demonstrated
Alright.
how she gets
She's
that
so
temperature.
skilled.
Okay,
She's so skilled at that, so I
I mean,
don't,
she could do crossover even then.
Yeah,
You know, like
she-
having,
she-
being able to do both.
she's
is a
very,
good
very good
thing.
at both, so I think the other thing to consider is it does feed into our Live New Canaan.
Mhm.
Because as far as a place for it to reside, we don't have to create another site.
Mhm.
We have that site, and all of a sudden it expands it again, you know, and that could be very neat.
You know what came to mind when I, this whole Live New Canaan thing, I can't believe I didn't think of before, so I'm in marketing. And so I think it's great that we want to take Live New Canaan and have it be ours and all of that, because it's such a great asset. The one thing that we then lose is this sort of third party that is talking about New Canaan, that seems more objective. That is it's kind of like a sort of like a review site telling you what's great about an area. And so we lose a little bit of the objectivity, although it's probably New Canaan, so there's a little less objectivity, but it is interesting. And so I do wonder if we think about how we would gain that back, like, so how we would influence sort of or create a third party sort of site that talks about New Canaan that isn't by New Canaan. Do you know what I'm saying?
Testimonials.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally what the internet, what people do, which is having another entity talk about you in a great, glowing, beautiful way. And we've lost, and we would lose that. We would lose that sort of like third party.
Or again, you have it in addition to.
Exactly. No, I don't, so I don't, I think it's a great decision to take it. Bar
What do you
none.
mean take it?
I mean, to take it over and.
We're not taking it over.
Oh, we're not like
Live
using
New
it.
Canaan? We're using it, we're supporting them.
Or just supporting it, we're not.
But they are still running,
They're
it's
still running it.
separate, it's completely separate.
So it's not like run by us.
No, it's run by the Board of Realtors.
And so
It's
they're
still
the
client.
client, just support.
and they're an unbiased.
Well, they're not unbiased.
They're not unbiased.
It's called Live New Canaan,
That's
so,
what
all right, so then that's.
Yeah, so no, we're not taking it
That
over.
is,
They're doing a fine job with it.
Yeah, no, I meant to say they're always eager and helpful at taking information that we give them
Yeah.
and putting it on, so I just think this is just another chapter
Yeah.
in.
What's
developing that
happened with Live New
relationship.
Canaan, when it first started versus what it is today is, they really expanded, their whole approach in that they spent a great deal of time, well, it was all about the real estate market and getting people in Brooklyn and places like that to move to town. They made it about the entire town, about all the businesses, you know, they would profile a business almost every day, and they're constantly reaching out for more content, so it became more of a community resource in my mind. Than just a site promoting, in fact, the whole housing piece of it, the whole house for sale part, the doesn't even seem to be, it doesn't feel that much. They really, the three different testimonials that they have in the videos on there, are just speaking about moving to New Canaan and what it means to live in New Canaan. It's not really, I was looking for this type of a house or that, it was good schools.
It was about the
town.
community.
It's about the community.
It's a great site, no?
Yeah, you should know that the first round of ARPA funds allocations that the Board of Selectmen proposed Tuesday,
Yeah.
Live New Canaan was part of that, and so now it will go through the rest of the process.
Oh.
But
Are we allowed to ask Live New Canaan for analytics?
they're preparing that right now.
Oh, that is so awesome,
Yeah.
because I just had this a feeling about it, like the website, the emails.
As
that
part of
they're
their
doing.
ARPA request, they had furnished a PowerPoint that just had a lot of the samples of what they had done, but then they had some very high level analytics, just impressions and things like that.
Okay.
But they are preparing
More
a
depth
more
and depth.
report.
That would be awesome, because I think that's gonna help us so much
Mhm.
to know, oh, that's the foundation we want.
Right.
So that's good.
All right, well, let's, again, trying to keep this meeting, as.
Can I
moving
just,
along.
I talked to the guy that runs the bicycle shop in town, you know him,
Lou-
right?
Lou Kozer?
Huh?
Lou
Lou,
Kozer.
Lou, right, and, cause I was asking him about bike events and things like that, and, you know, he ran a bike race here at one time back in the 70s and stuff like that, and he's got a lot of great insight. One of them was renting bikes. People had rented, an architectural group had come in and rented bikes from him and ridden around to, to see the mid-century homes.
Huh.
And having bikes at the train station, or doing not a bike race, but maybe a, around the city center here like that, or it was just a kind of interesting conversation where there are lots of things to think about that possible for events to add to the calendar.
There's a very active group here, because my husband's a huge cyclist.
That's what
There's
he
a very
said,
active
yeah.
group called Sound Cyclists. And they have events, literally rides every month that you could, in around town, you can go to Ridgefield, you can go to Tavensie Bridge, I mean, you can go wherever.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe we, town could put on an event. And then one of the interesting things he also said, he said that having bikes at cafe and carburetors, if you had a section with bikes, exotic bikes, titanium
interesting.
Oh,
bikes,
that's neat.
tandem bikes. I mean, you could do a whole thing
Yeah.
on that and kind of back it up. And just thinking about, Lush or something like that. Is that a regular hairdresser kind of place, Lush? I don't know.
Luscious.
You'll need to go and find out.
No, I mean, but because they need to get a pedicure, manicure. So,
I don't know if they do, I think they just do hair. I don't think they do.
okay. I just,
I'm not sure though.
but like if there were events like, where all the hairdressers got together and showed people how to wash people's hair or do some kind of event where different things happen.
So at all these events, just take people to Rome, right? That's the bottom line. I mean, you just have to, it sounds, Laura and I used to, bang our heads against the wall a lot at the chamber, because people would come in every day,
All the
all day
time.
like you, and say, got this great idea. And we would say, that is a fabulous idea. But who's gonna do it?
That's the
John-
same thing you're talking about
John.
with everything else, is who's gonna do what.
Right.
Tucker?
Yes.
Yeah, John, I just want to mention to you that I did run a bike tour with Modern House Man. The AIA of New York got in contact with me, and we did a whole tour of the Moderns and they rode their bikes, and the owners were very receptive, and we put water all around town for the bikers to use. And we did that strategically so they would stop in front of a house. And there was great interest in that. And Fred Noyes actually did open his house up, and at the very end, it was very nice. So there is that demand. The point is, there is that demand out there.
I feel like instead of almost owning something, is there something that someone else owns we could be a part of, like Stop in New Canaan, like have us be along a route?
So this is a conversation that we can have down the road, but I want to keep us.
You're right.
This is part of what I think has been frustrating for some of us over the last few months, is that we tend to go off and we are not coming back to what our priorities are. We can only manage so much. We're all very busy people. So I'm not opposed to any new events, but realistically, none of us here are going to go and run with some of these events. So right now we have this opportunity to have someone design something for us. I'd like to try to close the loop on this a little bit in terms of how we want to proceed. We, there is funding, there's economic development funding, not TDEC funding, but economic, that we can make recommendations for. And do we feel that we have enough information right now to proceed with some design work to get something done for us, to be able to distribute as in print form and hopefully in some sort of a digital form going forward, or do we need to get more information? What's the sense of the group?
I have a question about the print stuff, whether or not we need to get that number.
Yeah, that was going to be a question that I was going to have Nancy. Do you know if did Gina give you any sense of what printing costs might end up?
No, a lot of it depends on what the group wants. I mean, what quality of printing. If it turns out to be 20, she gave me an estimate based on 28 pages. We literally had like 5 hours to talk about it. So, maybe that's too small. Maybe it needs to be bigger. Do we want it? As she was saying, it can't be staple bound because that looks cheesy. So, we don't know the print costs. But we also, as Rita said, if this is mostly going to be digital, our print numbers are going to be pretty low.
Right.
Karen, are you still on the call? I would be interested to know if Grace Farms would be comfortable having it available to their visitors as a takeaway. Because we know they have a huge
Yeah.
crowd
Yeah.
that sometimes only goes to Grace Farms
Mhm.
for the day. And if those people, I mean, you know, Grace Farms can only do so much in terms of promoting the rest of New Canaan, but to have a beautiful, and that's why the print, a beautiful takeaway with great images, beautifully graphically designed that people can get on their way out. I don't know, I think it would be a good promotion to the kind of demographic that might visit the town.
I agree.
Agreed.
I don't know if Karen, I know she had some kids running around, so I'm not sure if she
Yeah,
had to,
she's with us.
if she's still with us, but,
I don't know, you think about having actually something that could be considered not sustainable, I don't know.
I know, you know, we used to bring, this map that we used to do, that glass house was on the front, we used to always bring it up to Grace Farms. They always
Very
were
willing
to hand it out and welcomed it, way back
Do
when.
you think we should table the idea? We love the idea,
Right,
but.
I guess we should get a little more
January?
information, Nancy, let's think about it a little bit, let's, as you say, this was,
And even just, you know, is recycled paper possible for printing? I mean, I don't know. And what's a small batch? The cost.
Well,
of
it depends what you want. You're not gonna get recycled printing if you want a glossy.
right,
No, it's just impossible to do. Yeah. I mean, recycled is completely great, the whole idea that it would be sustainable, but it's gonna look different than what we had talked about yesterday.
I think what I hear is that we're very interested in it. We probably need to do a little more research in the way of speaking with Grace Farms. You know, maybe we could get Krista to give us some information too on what she would see that might be something that would be appealing. And then we'll just revisit this at the January meeting. Does that,
Is
do
there
we
a
lose any time, Nancy? I mean, is there?
No, I mean, I can also ask Gina to be on the call. She can
That
answer
would be
questions
fabulous.
better than anybody. I mean, assuming.
Give us some time to think about it too.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some hybrid examples we could look at.
Yeah,
Is there a
and
mechanism
small.
to approve something between meetings?
Yeah, we
Because
could
it's
quickly
almost
call, we could call a special meeting, just to decide this at some point mid-January, where we could all just jump on a Zoom and have that be the only agenda item. We could certainly do
This
that.
next meeting's almost
Right.
months away.
Yeah,
Let's do that. Yeah. We
because I
could
think we're
convene
in
just on
agreement that we
this.
like it, it's just
I
the
mean, if we-
small amount of details.
We still have 30,000, is that what we're playing
We're at
with?
27,
So if you're talking 750 just for the design and
7,500.
you gotta figure, 8,000 or whatever, I mean, if we're already 20,000.
We're halfway into the year though. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of requests for anything else. I mean, we still have to make.
Oh, we're halfway through the year?
It's fiscal, so it's
Fiscal.
July 1. Yeah, so.
I also-
That'd be
I also
most
do
of what we
think
have,
that
right?
If you use Laura's model and you have somebody taking an ad space on the front and the back, and you have perhaps, I mean, I know the Historical Society would be certainly happy to kick in something on the print costs.
Yeah.
If this is marketing all of us, I think you could probably raise the print money. That's
Yeah,
that's my only question. I think we're kind of like,
Great way to think
everyone
about
has to spend a little and make a little.
Right.
And it gies distribution incentive, right? So if these printing partners, these sponsors, they want to get it out there, they've invested in it, and it gets the content out there, because how else are you going to distribute it? And incentivize people to distribute it.
Okay, all right, we'll revisit this. We'll get some more information. If anybody has any thoughts along the way, share them with me. And Nancy, I'll be in touch with you and we'll figure it out. And we can definitely call a special meeting if we want to make some decisions.
Okay.
Okay, but thank you for getting that work done thus far. Appreciate that. I do have our 2022 proposed meeting dates. I had sent that around to you all. Hopefully you all got that. And those I do need to get, we have to post that. So That does require, do we have approval? I need just a motion in a second to approve the 2022 calendar. BJ, you want to make one? Okay,
Yes.
Greg, BJ, Greg, everybody's good with that? All right, we'll get them posted. Laura, you want to give a quick update on sort of businesses in town and what's happening in your world?
Obviously, Holiday Stroll is tomorrow night, and then Santa will be here on Saturday at Houlihan Lawrence, who sponsored that. Really looking forward to having that event back. In terms of new businesses, I don't think anything new since last month. I can't remember if I mentioned last month, there's a space right across from Chef Louis, across the alleyway, that's going to be another healthy eating grab and go sort of place. I think it's called Barvita. It's down in Darien. So they're starting hopefully to do work there soon. But other than that, it's, you know, it's pretty status quo. You know, we have a lot of friction. The stores would really like the barriers gone, but you know, the health director wants outdoor dining to continue. But downtown is busy and bustling, and you know, you see people with bags. So I don't know, Heather may, you know, give more updates on, you know, how she feels it's going, but there are a lot of people in town. So, but no new businesses.
And the barriers, just to put the final piece on that, they are up for now. We'll sort of revisit it as we go. We have asked the town planner, Lynn, has asked each of the restaurants to reapply for their cafe permit. Normally the cafe permits require you to pull all the your furniture in by October 31st. But we've obviously extended it considering what's going on. That one side of the street of Elm Street gets so much sun, even in February. It's a nice summer day. It's warm out there. But so at any rate, they've all just received an email, all of the restaurants, asking for them to submit a drawing of how they're going to reconfigure their space. We do need to pull it in a little bit, open up the sidewalks, but the barriers will remain just to allow for enough space. The Playhouse continues. Kevin and I have been working on that kind of nonstop. The good news is that the scaffolding is down, although the roof work continues. But the interesting thing about the scaffolding going up is it created a lot of buzz. Everyone thought, what's happening? You know, is it opening? And Laura and I have been in there the last couple of nights because that's where we're sort of holding all of our holiday stroll workshop, if you will. And someone walked in the other night and asked Laura what was playing, wanted to buy a ticket. We're in there with Santa hats and we didn't even know what he meant. He said, how can I buy a ticket? What are you talking about? Oh, we're in the movie theater. The concert business. So, more on that as because we're trying to really you know, budget season is here, and if we want to, you know, make all the improvements that we need to make on the movie theater, we need to have a story to tell to make that argument hold. So we're working on that. As I had asked all of you, some of you have responded to me. I don't think I've heard from everybody, but we're all up for reappointment because we were all appointed actually within your, well, we all are because you came to fulfill.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that,
So what happens now? Oh, you mean, are you worried because of?
well, I don't think I could be on your and town council. I'm not sure how that works.
I think we can, but we'll check.
Okay, yeah, let's check.
So if you haven't gotten back to me, let me know if you would like to continue or not. And I'm not going to mention names, but there's a couple people in the room that had maybe said that they were going to step aside, but I'm not going to ask anybody to make those final decisions yet. I'm just going to give everyone a little more time to think about it. Just because, as I say, what I really want us to do in the next year is to, certainly the first year that we started, you know, we were just finding out who we were and what we wanted to do. And then, you know, of course, COVID happened and the world went haywire, but I would love to see us keep our meetings shorter, more focused. I think we need to, again, pick up on a couple of initiatives that we're going to be able to work toward and get accomplished. And while we have all of lots of ideas and things that are fun to talk about, I think we just need to manage our expectations of what we can do because we're all very, very busy. So I'm not going to ask anybody to go on the record yet, but just get to me one way or the other, just so I know, because the process is starting for reappointments, and we just have to get that finalized. The last thing, and I touched on it, but I'll just mention again on the ARPA funds. As I say, the Board of Selectmen passed on the initial recommendations for just a portion, where it's definitely going to be in phases. The nonprofit piece, I just want to be really clear, we have not gone there yet because we are partnering with the Community Foundation, who's going to send out a grant request, if you will, form that people can submit, and then they will use them as advisors to help us evaluate, what the funding should be. So I think the deadline is originally going to be January 15th. I was dealing with them today on that. So you'll learn more about that. But as I say, the ARPA is probably going to be a 3-phase, probably maybe even more discussion, depending on what comes up along the way. And I just thank you all for all of your work this year. It's been a weird year, but I think Buchanan actually has done relatively well. I mean, it's really amazing how everyone managed to pull it together, and some of the restaurants had their best years ever, so go figure, right? You just don't know. So everybody have a great holiday. Thank you for everything.
Tucker?
Come to the stroll tomorrow night. Yes, Jack, the
Tucker?
founder of the stroll.
I just have, I don't, it's hard for me to hear, but I don't know if you're looking for suggestions of maybe areas for us to look at in the future. But one thing I'm picking up is that I'm concerned about our village aspect going forward and how that reflects on tourism and also attracting people to our town to shop. We've always had this look, this sense of ambiance. And with all of the building that is being going on and being announced, I don't know if that's an area that we should be looking at and maybe making recommendations to the town government, because I do see a little bit of a disconnect with the people in town and what they see going on and maybe the direction the town is taking. Is that something we could discuss?
I'll defer to the rest of the group. I can only speak for myself in thinking that we've had, a couple of years of talking about some high level concepts and some real tangible things like October for Design. And I personally would like to see us stick more to some of the things that we've already talked about, like the October for Design, like the business guide, this marketing material. I don't know if I'm personally ready to have a bigger, broader discussion on that front, but
I would agree.
I don't know that that's I'm not saying I disagree or agree with what you said, but I feel like that's more like that's not our role.
That's a planning and zoning. The
I feel like that's
POCD
planning and zoning. I mean, I'm not
Right.
disagreeing with what you're saying. I just don't know if we're taking on something that's not really our.
Stay in our lane.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Anybody else? No? Okay. I mean, it's good.
Not
to
our lane.
Not in our lane, okay. But something to always be aware of, yeah, for sure. And if we can ever offer to whoever's lane it is, if it's planning and zoning or when the POCD, if they come to us and want input, we can certainly offer what we want. But I think right now, Jack, that's too big and too broad for us.
Okay. I just think that, again, because we are concerned about the mercantile health of the town, that's why I bring it up. But I do respect what you're all saying.
Okay. You're sitting there in Paris, Jack.
Yeah.
We're all here in New Canaan, so have fun in Paris.
Well, I'll
and
be back.
stay-
I'll be back.
It's 2:30 where he is.
That's right, it's 2:30 in the morning. What are you doing up?
I do a lot of night Zoom calls, believe me. I do a lot of
Alright.
night real
Thank you all
calls.
again. Happy holidays. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Good night.
Good night.